7 years of marriage. I thought I had the perfect family, until I found out my husband was saving his kisses for another woman. The one he called his pure love. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Walk away in silence, confront and expose, or forgive one last time? Leave a comment. I'll read what you have to say. I'm Nora. The rain hammered down like angry fists against the windshield, each drop a reminder of a long, weary day. Late at night, the neon from the street threw hazy red and blue streaks across the car window. I drove down familiar roads. Work at the ad agency had run longer than expected. But when the bar lights along the way came into view, I suddenly thought of Colin, my husband, who was there with his friends. A thought flickered. Why not go pick him up? A small, unexpected pleasure. I smiled, imagining Colin's face lighting up when he saw me, like in the early days of our relationship, when little gestures like that made his heart race. I signaled into the parking lot, fighting off my fatigue, warmed by the idea of a sweet evening with my husband after a busy period. I walked to the private room door. The loud music and the sharp smell of alcohol hit me. Colin sat among his friends, his face flushed from drink, his voice ringing out, cold as a blade. Nora is fine in every way. It's just a pity she's divorced. Thinking about the fact she's had a husband before makes me uncomfortable. My hand on the door handle went rigid. A chill ran down my spine, as if someone had poured ice water over me. Divorced? He cared about that? 7 years ago, when he knelt to propose under a sky full of stars, his blue eyes shining, he swore, "Nora, the divorce wasn't your fault. I don't mind. I promise I'll never bring up the past to hurt you." That vow, sweet as a love song then, now felt like a knife piercing my heart. 7 years of marriage. I had given him everything. Love, trust, even the broken pieces of a past I thought he'd helped me mend. And now, in front of friends, he turned my past into a reason to despise me. Does he hate me? The question dug into my head, but the answer was as clear as the lights outside. If he dared say this in public, he had surely found a better choice. I took a deep breath, holding back the burn in my chest. I pushed the door open, my face calm, as if I'd heard nothing. Colin's friends looked awkward. Some hurriedly changed the subject, voices embarrassed. "Nora, you're here. Colin's drunk. We were about to call an Uber." I smiled, gentle like a heart that hadn't just shattered. "Thanks, everyone." "I'll take him home," Colin, stumbling drunk, leaned on my shoulder, whiskey on his breath. He slumped into the back seat and fell asleep, his face careless, as if he'd done nothing wrong. In the dark, his phone lit up on the seat beside him. 2 words flashed on the screen. My wife, like a slap in my face. My wife. He had never saved my name in his contacts as anything other than Nora. I had never asked for his phone passcode because I always respected his privacy, a principle I once thought the foundation of trust. But now the pain in my chest felt like salt rubbed into it. I couldn't help it. Hands shaking, I picked up his phone and used his index finger to unlock it. Her name was Brianna, with a bright red heart emoji after it. The message history stretched back to last year. I tapped a random day, and sweet words hit my eyes like knives. "Honey, you're the one who understands me best in this world," he wrote. "You're the only one in my heart." Whenever Brianna sulked, he immediately soothed her with gifts, Louis Vuitton bags, Louboutin shoes, or a romantic dinner at a 5-star midtown restaurant. On her birthday, he'd given her a Tiffany ring, the very thing I had wanted for our 7-year anniversary. I remember the day I timidly mentioned the Tiffany ring. He laughed. his tone gentle but cold. "Nora, that's just luxury. Unnecessary. Don't chase after those flashy things. Yet that frivolous ring he bought for Brianna." I scrolled on. One message froze me. Brianna wrote, "But when you come home, you still hold that other woman." "Do you even remember me?" Colin replied immediately. "What can I do for you to trust me?" "My body may not belong to you alone, but my kisses are only for you." No wonder he hadn't been kissing me lately. I thought his avoidance was exhaustion, work pressure. It turned out he'd been saving his kisses for someone else. I turned the phone off, a wave of disgust rising like a tide. My hands tightened on the steering wheel, but I didn't cry. Not because I'm strong, but because the anger inside me swallowed every tear. Back home, Colin woke, staggered into the living room, and took my hand. "Nora, you're still the best." I smiled coldly inside, but outwardly soft. "Get some rest. Tomorrow you're taking Owen to the amusement park." He paused, then brightened. "Right, we're going." "Get to bed early," he smiled, carefree as the ideal husband and father. But I knew he'd arranged to meet Brianna the next day. Was he really going to take Owen to meet her? The question stabbed me like a knife. Owen, our 4-year-old with a smile just like Colin's, was the only light in my life. The thought that he would drag our son into his filthy deception made my blood boil. I studied oil painting in college, where I met my ex-husband, a passionate but deeply conflicted artist. We fell hard for each other, got married right after graduation, thinking that art would keep us together. But creative disagreements turned into endless fights. Less than a year later, we divorced. He moved abroad, and I stayed behind, working at an art center, continuing to follow my passion. Then I met Colin at an exhibition. He stood in front of one of my paintings, eyes focused, and soon began pursuing me relentlessly. I was upfront about my past, about the failed marriage. He hesitated for a moment, but then that bright smile returned. "Love conquers all, Nora," he said, taking my hand. "Let me be the one to heal the wounds you've carried." I was moved. My fractured heart opened again. I chose to believe in love. We got married, and soon after, I was pregnant with Owen. Colin said to me, "Don't work anymore, Nora. You can still paint at home, and later you'll be able to guide our child into the arts." I nodded, trusting that he wanted the best for me, for our family. I quit my job, focused on the pregnancy, dreaming of the days Owen and I would paint colorful pictures together. When Owen was born, I got caught up in caring for him and managing the household. Only on weekends, when Colin was off, did I sneak in a few brushstrokes. My dreams of art now reduced to scattered fragments. I used to think I was happy. If only I hadn't looked at his phone. Morning came with difficulty. I forced myself up, my body heavy like it had been crushed under a ton of stone. I hadn't slept all night, eyes wide open staring at the ceiling, Colin and Brianna's messages playing in my head like a horror film on loop. I walked into the living room, and the scene before me made my heart tighten. Colin was already dressed, hair neatly combed. Beside him, my mother-in-law, Evelyn Pierce, was holding Owen, who giggled as she tickled his belly. The three of them looked as though they didn't need me at all. Evelyn looked at me, her expression briefly concerned when she saw my pale face. She came over, her voice gentle, but with that familiar tone of soft appeasement. "Nora, you look pale. Must have had a rough night." "Go back to sleep. I'll bring you something to eat later." I forced a smile, my lips stiff like I was wearing a mask. "I'm not hungry, Evelyn." "I'll sleep a bit more." "Go on then," she said, placing a hand on my shoulder, lightly but firmly guiding me back toward the bedroom. Then she turned to Colin, cheerful. "Let's go, Owen. You're gonna love the park today." Owen squealed, eyes sparkling. Colin laughed, lifting him up onto his shoulders and walking out the door. They left, and the sound of the door slamming shut felt like a hammer pounding my chest. I rushed into the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face as if to wash away the fog of exhaustion. I threw on a gray sweater and jeans, opened the car tracking app. The GPS pinged at the children's amusement park. I jumped into a taxi, my heart pounding. Not from fear, but from the fire of rage burning inside. The driver glanced at me through the rearview mirror, probably catching the icy look in my eyes. "You okay, miss?" he asked. I nodded, my voice dry. "I'm fine, thank you." I strode straight to the kart racing area, Owen's favorite. Engines roared, kids screamed with excitement. But when I looked out at the track, the one riding with Owen wasn't Colin. It was Evelyn, my mother-in-law, beaming like she was starring in some perfect grandma performance. My eyes scanned the nearby rest area, and then I saw them. Colin, my husband, standing under an oak tree, shoulder to shoulder with a young woman. She was blonde, wearing a tight floral dress, looking at him like he was her whole universe. They were laughing, flirting, and then he gently lifted her chin, his fingers softly stroking her cheek. They kissed, like the world around them didn't exist. I froze. My head exploded like a bomb. So even Evelyn knew. This morning, when she gently pushed me back into the bedroom and told me to rest, it wasn't concern, it was cover, helping her son hide his betrayal. In this house, in this family, what was I? Just a convenient wife? The anger surged through me, wiping away every ounce of hesitation. I marched forward, my heels slamming against the gravel path, eyes locked on Colin. He flinched, his face draining of color when he saw me. Without thinking, I walked straight up and slapped him. The girl jumped back, startled, screaming, "Why did you hit him?" Colin snapped out of it, and his first instinct was to step in front of Brianna like a knight shielding his princess. "Nora, if you're upset, talk to me. Don't take it out on her." My husband, the man who once swore he'd love me till the end, now stood there defending a stranger, taking her side against me. I suddenly saw myself pathetic. The family I'd worked so hard to build was this easy to destroy. I held it together, my voice sharp and cold. "How long have you two been together?" Colin glared at me, angry. "Nora, she's just a friend." "What gives you the right to accuse me?" I laughed, bitter as poison. "A friend? You called her wife on iMessage, gave her Louis Vuitton bags, Tiffany rings, and you just kissed her." His face froze, panic flashing in his eyes. Then he lashed out. "How dare you go through my phone? Who gave you the right to invade my privacy?" I laughed louder, the sound echoing across the park, drawing stares from people nearby. "Privacy? Colin, how did I never see it before? You're a piece of trash. Your privacy is cheating on your family, lying to your wife." At that moment, Evelyn rushed over, holding Owen in her arms. The boy looked at me, confused, his clear eyes stabbing straight into my heart. Evelyn saw the scene, her face turned pale, but she quickly stepped in front of Colin, shielding him, like I was the one in the wrong. She pointed at me, her voice sharp. "Nora, this is public. Don't make a scene." I went cold, staring at her, my voice shaking with rage. "Mom, he cheated." Evelyn sighed, her tone indifferent, like she was commenting on the weather. "Nora, it's just a little mistake. Don't blow it out of proportion. After all, you've been married before. Try to be understanding." My fists clenched, nails digging into my palms. The grief and fury rose like a tsunami. If he had a problem with my past, why didn't he say so from the start? And now he dares to act like he's in the right? You disgusting man. You two, shameless. Colin's expression darkened. He stared at me coldly. "Nora, insult me all you want, but leave Brianna out of it." "She's not like you. I'm her first love." My rage collapsed into a painful clarity. First love. That's what he's chasing. Because he wasn't my first, he was willing to trample morality, throw away our family, and erase me like I never mattered. I looked at him, eyes full of disappointment. At this point, there was nothing left to say. I turned and walked away. Suddenly, Brianna grabbed my arm. her nails digging into my skin like tiny needles. "Nora, don't be mad. I'm sorry." Her voice was sugary sweet, but her eyes flickered with calculation. I knew what she was doing. She wanted me to lose control, to look like the aggressor in front of everyone, but the pain made me react on instinct. I yanked my arm back, and Brianna let out a cry, stumbling onto the grass as if I had shoved her violently. She clutched her wrist, eyes welling up with tears, playing the role of the poor, helpless victim. I stood there, coldly watching her performance. "Nora!" Colin shouted, his voice slicing through the air like a blade. "It's not enough that you accuse me. Now you're hurting Brianna? You're acting like a crazy woman." He bent down to help Brianna up, but then, from the edge of the scene, a small figure rushed in. Owen, my son, his clear eyes now red and puffy, ran straight at me and pushed against my legs with his tiny hands. "Don't hurt Brianna, Mommy! You're bad! I hate you!" My heart clenched, crushed by an invisible fist. I crouched down, staring into his eyes, my voice shaking. "Owen, what did you say?" The boy sobbed, his little hands still pushing me, his voice cracking. "Daddy works hard to take care of you. Why are you mean to him and Brianna?" His words cut deeper than Colin's betrayal ever could. I could bear my husband cheating. I could even bear my mother-in-law covering for him. But hearing my son, the one light in my life, call me a bad mom, I felt my whole world collapse. Tears welled up. I looked up and locked eyes with Evelyn. She hadn't yet wiped off the faint, victorious smile creeping across her face, as if she'd been waiting for this exact moment. A memory flashed, sharp as an oil painting I once painted. The days I did housework while Evelyn held Owen close, whispering into his ear when I wasn't looking. The weekends when I stole a few hours to paint, and they'd take Owen out to play, laughing like a family I was never invited to. Since when? Since when did I become a bad mother in my own child's eyes? Since when had they planted lies in his mind, turning me into the outsider of my own family? Tears rolled down, hot on my cheeks, but I didn't wipe them away. I wanted to shove Owen aside, scream that he didn't understand, that I loved him more than life itself. But I couldn't. Instead, I gently pulled him to the side, my trembling hand brushing his soft hair. No, this wasn't his fault. I looked up, stared straight into Colin's eyes, and let the words fly. "We're getting a divorce!" "He's yours!" My voice rang out, cold and unwavering, beneath the blazing sun of Central Park. Colin froze. Brianna stopped pretending, but I wasn't looking at them anymore. I knew the divorce process would drag on, possibly months of exhaustion. I sat in the corner of the living room, opened my phone, fingers moving quickly as I sent an email to the lawyer, asking him to prepare the divorce papers. I knew Colin wouldn't let go easily. For years, he had been the main source of income. He would never agree to split the assets, the house, the car, or the savings I once believed belonged to both of us. And sure enough, as I was packing clothes into a suitcase, I heard the sound of a key turning in the door. Colin stepped in, his leather shoes hitting the wooden floor hard, his glare sharp enough to cut through me. "Nora," he said, his voice low but full of pressure, "you've already been divorced once. Can you act a little more grown up?" I frowned. So just because I'd been divorced before, I was supposed to put up with someone like him? "Grown up?" I said, my voice as sharp as a knife. "You mean I should pretend I'm blind so you can keep cheating on me?" Colin stepped forward, blocking my suitcase, arms crossed. "In this family, I've fulfilled my duty as a husband. 7 years of marriage. I gave you everything. Money, a home, time to stay home, to paint. Was that not enough?" He paused, then tilted his head, voice dropping like he was offering pity. "Brianna and I, it's just love." "I don't plan on divorcing you." I yanked the suitcase from his grip, swallowing the rising lump in my throat. "It's not enough, Colin. I don't want to live with a piece of shit like you." He rushed over, blocking the door, his eyes burning into me. "Without me, you won't survive, Nora." "You want a divorce? Fine. but don't expect to get a single dime." His words felt like a slap, but not because of money. I was innocent. I had given up my career, my dreams, to be the wife and mother he claimed to want. And now he stood there, making me out to be a leech, undeserving of everything I helped build. Assets? I could live without them. But what choked me was the injustice. I gave him all my love, and he repaid me with betrayal. Every time I looked at him, I saw those messages again, like blades sinking into my chest, cutting so deep I could barely breathe. The sound of the door opening broke my thoughts. Evelyn stepped in, carrying Owen in her arms, her eyes sliding past me with a flicker of disdain. She leaned down and whispered something in Owen's ear. The boy looked up, eyes red and teary, then suddenly ran toward me, wrapping himself around my legs, sobbing, "Mommy, I'm sorry." "Please don't go." I dropped to my knees, looking into Owen's baby face, my heart being slashed open. His eyes, so much like Colin's, sparkled with tears and confusion. I broke down. I gently hugged Owen, feeling his small warmth against me, while a storm raged inside. If I left him here, he'd become more like the Pierces. They'd teach him to look at me with contempt, to turn him into another Colin, a man willing to trample others for his own gain. My son, how could I let him fall like that? But still, his words from the park, "I hate you," echoed like a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. Children don't yet know right from wrong. Whoever treats them well, they believe is good. But if I stubbornly took Owen away, he'd grow up inside a lie, never knowing the truth about his father and grandmother. He needs to face things to grow. That thought hurt, but I knew it was real. I looked at Owen, my voice gentle but choked. "Okay, Mommy's not going." Colin looked at me, a flicker of triumph in his eyes, like he had just won a match. Evelyn smiled, patting Owen's back like she was the hero. But I didn't care. I was waiting. Night fell. The apartment sank into darkness. Owen was fast asleep, his breathing soft and steady. I quietly pulled the suitcase along, each step light. I opened the door and didn't look back. After realizing I had quietly left, my phone began to vibrate nonstop, Colin's name flashing on the screen like a curse. I didn't answer. He called over and over, followed by a barrage of messages. "Nora, where are you?" "Come back right now!" His voice on voicemail hissed with fury, still carrying that familiar commanding tone, like I was a child who needed discipline. He was a master manipulator, but I didn't want to be dragged into it. I blocked his number, handed the entire divorce negotiation to my lawyer, and turned off my phone, leaving Colin's chaos behind. But he didn't stop. When the calls failed, Colin changed tactics. Videos of Owen started coming in from his number. In one clip, Owen sat on the floor, chocolate smeared on his shirt, hair messy, face streaked with dirt. He was quietly sobbing, his voice breaking. "I want Mommy!" His cries tore straight through me. I stared at Owen, my son, whom I had always kept clean, bright, and safe, now looking like a neglected child. Behind him, the apartment was a mess. Toys scattered across the floor. Colin had to work, and Evelyn had stepped in to help. But clearly, she couldn't manage the way I did. I clutched my phone, wanting nothing more than to crawl through the screen and hold Owen, wipe his face, rock him until he stopped crying. He needed me, but then reason pulled me back. Owen was the chain they were using to tie me down. Colin and Evelyn knew my love for my son was my biggest weakness. If I went back, I'd fall into the same trap again, fake promises, days spent as a housewife in exchange for their contempt. Logic and emotion battled inside me, ripping me into pieces. In that torment, I found a small rented room. The divorce negotiations began to show signs of light. As expected, Colin refused to split the assets. He insisted he had contributed more, and that if I insisted on divorce, I wouldn't get a dime. His messages through the lawyer were full of arrogance, but my lawyer, a sharp, unflinching woman, fought relentlessly. In the end, she secured 40% of the assets for me. I thought for a moment, then sent a message back to Colin, I'll take just 30%. In return, I want all of my paintings. They're useless to you, to him. Those canvases, the fragments of my soul poured into art, were worth nothing. On the day of the settlement meeting, Colin stood in front of me in the lawyer's office, eyes filled with contempt. He crossed his arms, voice dripping with mockery. "Nora, you're not fit to be a mother." His words were like a knife, but I didn't flinch. I once believed being a mother, a housewife, was a sacred job. But to Colin, it was the cheapest role, the easiest to belittle. For 5 years, I had sacrificed my dreams, my career, to be the perfect mom, the devoted wife. But now, I was changing careers, choosing myself. I looked him straight in the eyes. I was the perfect mother for 5 years. I'm leaving because you're not worth staying for. Instead of throwing poison at me, ask yourself what you've done. Colin sneered, that familiar arrogance flickering in his eyes. It was just a mistake, Nora. If you come back, I'll change. I looked at him and smiled. I don't believe a single word. But it wasn't over yet. A few days later, Evelyn asked to meet, saying she wanted to discuss final divorce terms. It turned out Brianna was pregnant, and Evelyn said it was Colin's child. Evelyn continued, her tone like she was bestowing mercy. Colin needs a wife who fits his lifestyle better. You tried, but the two of you don't match. If you just don't drag this out, we'll give you half the assets. I looked at her. Fine, I said, voice soft but steady. I agree. Brianna was pregnant, and Colin had to divorce quickly to marry her. He no longer had time to fight with me. In the lawyer's office, we signed the papers. No arguments, no drama. I walked away with half the assets and all of my paintings. My second marriage ended not in tears, but in release. The paintings in my hands, though old, were a promise to myself. I will repaint my life, not for anyone else, but for me. Over the past few years, even though I was trapped in the roles of wife and mother, I never stopped painting. My artwork came in scattered bursts, but over time, they piled up in the corner of my little studio. Last month, a gallery in Manhattan, Initial Gallery, expressed interest in buying one of them. To me, those paintings were worth more than gold, more valuable than any shared asset with Colin. They were breath, dreams, the only thing no one could ever take from me. Once I was settled in the small rental apartment, I carefully wrapped the painting and brought it to Initial Gallery. The space was lively, warm lights glowing over the paintings on the walls, soft murmurs of conversation drifting like background music. They were hosting an exhibition, and I curiously wandered in, scanning the canvases. A familiar signature stopped me in my tracks. Gabriel Ford, my ex-husband. Gabriel's paintings lit up the wall, every brushstroke telling a story of its own. One piece, Withering Roses, drew my gaze. Faded petals scattered across a dark background, soaked in the essence of decay and longing. The emotion in that painting pulled me in, a deep sadness rising up, as if I was staring directly at my own failed marriage. The painting had just sold for $200,000. Gabriel had come that far. I stood there in silence, fingers clutching the frame in my hand, my chest heavy. 7 years ago, we argued over creative differences, fights that wounded both of us, until our divorce turned ugly. I thought I'd moved on, but now, facing his success, I felt like the loser. He was a celebrated artist, and me, a betrayed wife, a mother distanced from her child. Nora? A warm, deep voice came from behind. I turned around, and Gabriel was there, a soft smile on his lips. After 7 or 8 years, he had barely changed. Still the tousled brown hair, the bright eyes, but now with a quiet confidence, the presence of an artist who had found his place in the world. I sighed inwardly. And me? Still stuck in the spiral of love and family. It's been a while, I nodded, my voice dry, trying to mask the sting of inferiority clawing at my chest. Gabriel smiled with his eyes, that sparkle I remembered from when we were young. It really is you. Let me introduce you around? I held up the frame in my hand, trying to brush him off. No need, I'm just here to see Mr. Tom. But Gabriel didn't let me dodge. He leaned in, curious, looking at the painting I was holding. Is this your work? Without waiting for an answer, he gently took the frame, eyes scanning each stroke intently. I wanted to hide it, but then he looked up, his voice filled with awe. Nora, your painting is completely different now. This piece, it's perfect, so warm. That painting was about the dream of a happy family, a loving husband, an obedient child, a kind mother-in-law. Just an illusion, a story I once believed was real. But Gabriel's praise, so genuine and full of warmth, stopped my heart for a beat. He went on, his voice animated. So you're the young artist Mr. Tom's been waiting for today? I know him well. With me here, he won't dare lowball you. I was stunned to learn Gabriel was a shareholder at Initial Gallery, and that Mr. Tom, the gallery head, was his friend. Mr. Tom had initially offered $50,000 for my painting, but thanks to Gabriel, the price was raised to $100,000. At the end of the event, Gabriel walked me out. He looked at me, voice serious. Nora, your artistic talent is greater than mine. Don't give it up. I looked into his eyes and saw nothing but sincerity. I smiled gently. Thank you. I'll keep going. My ride arrived, and I stepped in, but Gabriel suddenly called after me. With such a happy scene in your painting, you must be living a good life now? I froze, my heart aching, but I turned back, gave a small smile, and said calmly, I'm living very well. Without the burden of family, I felt like I had been released from an invisible cage. 5 years of being a housewife hadn't killed my creative fire. On the contrary, it had built up a storehouse of ideas, like seeds waiting for the right day to bloom. I painted relentlessly, pouring every joy, every wound, every scar of my heart into each brushstroke. Every painting was a story, of broken love, of dreams buried, and of a Nora trying to find herself again. Every time I finished a piece, I brought it to Initial Gallery. The gallery was filled with light, the faint scent of oil paint blending with the quiet hum of visitors. Gabriel, now a shareholder of the gallery, was often there when I came to drop off my work. He would tilt his head, studying every brushstroke carefully, sometimes offering a few short, sharp suggestions that lit up hidden corners of my ideas. Add some contrast here, Nora. It'll make the emotion explode. Those words, simple but precious, help me refine each piece. On weekends, I spent time with Owen. In the first few months after the divorce, he had trouble adjusting, his clear eyes often looking at me with confusion. Evelyn never stopped whispering nasty things about me, planting the idea in his head that I was the one who abandoned the family. But now that I was free, I had more time for Owen. I told him stories, played the games he liked, and little by little, he started to understand. Mom isn't as bad as Grandma says. Every visit, Owen would hug me tight. Mom, I missed you. I held him, my heart aching, but my mind reminded me, with Colin and Evelyn taking care of him, he was still happy. I couldn't be selfish. It was clear that, for now, Owen was better off staying with Colin than living with me. One weekend, I took Owen to the amusement park at Coney Island, where bright sunshine lit up the Ferris wheels and the sound of children's laughter filled the air. But today, Owen was strangely quiet. He kept his head down, tiny hands clenching the drawstrings of his hoodie, his voice small and hurt. I'm getting a new mom. Grandma said when there's a new mom, the old one doesn't want me anymore. Is that true? I quickly knelt down, looked straight into his eyes, my voice gentle but firm. Of course not, Owen. I will never leave you. Even if we don't live together, I'm always with you. You are my treasure. Forever I stroked his hair, feeling his little head lean into my shoulder. Owen nodded, but his eyes still carried a sadness, like he wasn't quite convinced. I smiled, trying to hide the pain inside. I want to ride that roller coaster, I said. pointing to the colorful spinning ride. "Wanna come with me?" Owen looked up, his eyes starting to brighten, then nodded enthusiastically. On the roller coaster, his joyful screams mingled with the wind, and his beaming smile swept away all the sorrow. When I dropped Owen off at the Upper West Side apartment, I saw Colin standing at the door, the same old arrogance in his eyes. After Owen went inside, I stepped forward and warned him, "Don't let me hear one more word that hurts Owen, or I swear I won't spare your family." Colin curled his lip, a flicker of resentment in his eyes. "Nora, you filed for divorce and left your son behind. And now you think you have the right to lecture me?" I glanced inside the house, where Brianna sat on the sofa, stroking her pregnant belly, eyes avoiding mine. She wasn't innocent. From that fake fall in the park, I knew she was the type who would stage anything to get what she wanted. I turned back to Colin. "You say that, but have you even looked at yourself?" Colin stayed quiet, but his eyes were stubborn. Blinded by love, he'd lost all sense of judgment. He rushed to marry Brianna, convinced she was the perfect first love, but I knew. The price of lies would reveal itself soon enough. I turned away, saying nothing more. "I'll be watching, Colin. Let's see how you live after this second marriage." With some income from my paintings, I didn't hesitate to invest in an old apartment, just spacious enough to store my canvases. I also bought a used car, something practical to take Owen out on weekends. The paintings, and Owen, those were the two most important things in my new life. The apartment was where I focused on creating, and the car was the bridge that brought me closer to my son, even if only for a few weekend hours. After dropping Owen off at home, I drove to Initial Gallery. Gabriel had scheduled a meeting to discuss a long-term contract, a turning point in my career. In the small office, he slid a cup of coffee toward me, steam rising, the rich aroma filling the room. He sat across from me, his serious smile tinged with nostalgia. "When we graduated, we were so arrogant. We both had huge egos," he said, eyes glinting as if seeing our younger selves. "We used to be the dream couple everyone talked about, and yet we didn't even last a year." I shook my head, offered a faint smile, my hand gently wrapped around the warm cup. Looking back now, maybe that was for the best. "You went abroad to study, and that's how you got to where you are today." Gabriel leaned in slightly, his gaze sharp, as if trying to see through me. "Nora, are you okay?" He paused, his voice lowering, as if weighing his words. "Art is a different kind of expression. From your recent pieces, I can tell your marriage wasn't happy. You got divorced, didn't you?" Caught, I simply nodded. Gabriel's expression shifted for a moment, a shadow of thought crossing his face. Then he said suddenly, "I really regret it, Nora. Back then, if we had just sat down and talked things through, maybe we wouldn't have ended." I cut him off right away. "Gabriel, we're here to discuss the contract." 2 failed marriages had taught me enough. That thing called love, marriage, I didn't want to step into it again. Gabriel looked a bit surprised, his eyes brushing over me. Then he smiled and returned to his professional tone. "All right, the contract." He flipped through the paperwork, his voice even, focused on the terms. I let out a breath, feeling like I'd just weathered a minor storm. After we finished, I stepped out into the gallery lobby. A group of visitors were viewing the paintings, and one of the gallery staff was speaking excitedly. When she saw me, she smiled brightly and waved me over. "This is the artist, Miss Hayes. If you're interested, you can speak with her directly." I looked at the potential buyer, a familiar face, one of Colin's friends, someone who had been at that fateful dinner party the night Colin aired out my past divorce like it was a stain. The man looked awkward. "Nora, hello? Hello? Do you like this piece? Since we know each other, I'll knock off 20%. He blinked, surprised. The painting was listed at $100,000, so a discount brought it down to 80, still a number that would make most people hesitate. He looked uneasy, waving his hand. "We'll think about it." I nodded slightly and walked away at a calm pace. Behind me, I heard the quiet murmurs, drifting like a breeze through the gallery. "She's doing great now. Colin was blind." Another voice chimed in. "Yeah, he's definitely going to regret it sooner or later." Late at night, I returned to my apartment in Brooklyn. Just as I stepped into the yard, still in my sweat-dampened fitted top with a light cardigan over it, a figure lunged at me from the shadows. Colin! I stepped back, watching him warily. The stench of alcohol hit me instantly, his eyes locked on me like a predator. "Nora, dressed like this. Who were you meeting?" He spat each word with accusation. I frowned, gripping the strings of my hoodie tightly. "What does that have to do with you?" Colin clenched his jaw and raised his phone, the screen glowing with a photo. Me and Gabriel standing next to each other in the gallery, Gabriel looking intently at my painting. "Larry told me about you, and I didn't believe it," he growled, voice thick with drunkenness. "If I remember correctly, Gabriel was your ex-husband?" He let out a bitter laugh, his eyes scanning me from head to toe in contempt. "No wonder you rushed the divorce." "So it was to crawl back to your ex. Tell me, when did it start? Were you cheating on me before the divorce?" His face twisted, breath heavy, like someone on the verge of losing control. I shouted back, voice shaking with fury. "Colin, just because you cheated doesn't mean I did too." I stepped back again, my hand fumbling in my pocket for my phone, fingers trembling against the screen. But Colin didn't give me the chance. He lunged forward and grabbed my arm tightly, his grip making me wince in pain. "You married me and still couldn't forget him? And you dare scold me for cheating?" He snatched the phone from my hand and threw it against the wall. He leaned down, voice dripping with disgust. "You're the cheap one." Filthy. His words poured fuel onto the fire inside me. He shoved me hard, and I fell flat onto the ground, my knees slamming into the gravel, pain shooting through me like an electric shock. But my rage exploded even stronger. I screamed, forgetting the pain. "Colin, if you only wanted a virgin, why did you chase me in the first place? I gave birth to your child, and now you throw my past in my face. You're garbage! We're divorced, remember that." My eyes burned with fury, and I had to fight to stop myself from lunging at him. 7 years of marriage, and I'd picked a piece of trash like him. Colin's face turned red, his fist clenched, stepping closer, growling, "Come with me!" Let Owen see what kind of woman his mother really is. He was insane. I struggled, screamed, "Let go!" But he didn't hear. His hand clamped tightly around my wrist, yanking hard. Suddenly, a figure darted in from behind. A solid punch landed straight on Colin's face, sending him crashing to the ground, groaning, clutching his face. I looked up, stunned. Gabriel. He stood there, sweat on his forehead, breathing heavily like he'd run all the way. "Nora, are you okay?" His voice was full of worry, eyes scanning me for bruises. I shook my head. Why are you here?" Gabriel exhaled, picked up my shattered phone, voice softening. "You called me." I glanced down at the cracked screen. When Colin snatched the phone, I had tried to dial 911, but my finger must have hit Gabriel's number, the last one I had called. If he hadn't been nearby, he wouldn't have made it in time. I pretended not to understand, simply murmured, "Thank you." Across from us, Colin struggled to his feet, blood at the corner of his mouth, yet he still managed to sneer, voice full of sarcasm. "So you are sleeping with him?" The rage rose again, but I wasn't foolish enough to argue. I stood tall, met his eyes, and said clearly, "During our marriage, I never contacted Gabriel. Investigate all you want. But after the divorce, who I love, who I live with, that's my freedom." I paused, my voice turning icy. "Marrying you was the biggest regret of my life." Colin froze, completely still, as if those words hit harder than Gabriel's punch. I didn't look at him again. I walked away, leaving Colin and his worthless accusations behind in the dark. A CT-11. Since that night, Colin had stopped bothering me. One day, my phone lit up with an unexpected message, a digital invitation from him, announcing his wedding with Brianna. I glanced at it, then deleted it. On their wedding day, I took Owen out. The two of us laughed together on the Ferris wheel, his shouts of joy mixing with the sound of ocean waves, and in that moment, all the pain of the past seemed to melt away. Life afterward drifted by peacefully, like an oil painting I had just finished, smooth and full of color. I kept painting, each brushstroke taking me one step closer to myself. Meanwhile, Brianna's belly grew more obvious, and both Colin and Evelyn poured all their attention onto her. Owen, my little light, was gradually pushed to the side. On the days I picked him up, he seemed quiet, his once clear eyes now tinged with sadness. "Dad's really busy," he whispered, fingers gripping the strings of his hoodie like he was afraid I might leave him too. I hugged him, heart aching, and just whispered, "Mom's always here, Owen." After New Year's, Colin's second child was born. Around the same time, I was preparing for my first solo exhibition. Gabriel had helped me a lot. He sped up the whole process. Without him, I probably would have had to wait another few years. Opening day. I stood before the red ribbon, hands trembling as I cut it, then lifted my head and took a deep breath, soaking in the feeling of being seen. My paintings lined the walls, each stroke retelling my story. Guests murmured in awe, pointing at the pieces, and for the first time, I felt like I truly belonged. "Mom!" Owen's voice rang out. I looked up to see him running toward me, his tousled brown hair glowing under the lights. But behind him, Colin's entire family appeared. Him, Brianna, and a newborn in a stroller. Colin stepped forward, his eyes awkward, voice hesitant. "Congratulations, Nora." I met his gaze, catching a flicker of regret, as if he was realizing too late what he'd lost when I took all the paintings, artworks he once thought were worthless. I replied, "Thanks. Feel free to look around." Brianna, standing beside him, rolled her eyes and stroked the sparkling ring on her finger. "Nothing worth seeing," she muttered in a shrill voice. "Let's go, Colin." He forced a smile, a trace of apology in his expression, then quickly followed his wife, pushing the stroller along. He had kept his word, spoiling his first love to the point of blindness. I watched Brianna's back, my lips curving slightly, not out of jealousy, but because of a quiet hunch. "Mom, I want to paint." Owen wrapped his arms around my leg, looking up with eyes that sparkled, voice full of curiosity. "What were you looking at?" I took his hand and led him to the corner of the gallery, where a palette and drawing paper had been set up. "Your baby brother," I answered softly. The child in the stroller had dark brown hair, just like Owen, just like me. But both Colin and Brianna had golden blonde hair. I didn't say a word, I just smiled, my eyes brushing over their little family one last time. Let Colin figure it out on his own. ACT 12. The exhibition ended with applause echoing through the gallery. I took Owen out to dinner at a cozy Italian restaurant, the warm scent of tomato sauce and pasta wrapping around us. Gabriel, ever persistent, insisted on joining. I shook my head, but he still tagged along, shedding his usual serious artist demeanor and becoming as friendly as an old friend. He played with Owen, and after I dropped my son off, Gabriel rode with me, sitting in the passenger seat while the streetlights cast a soft glow across his face. Out of nowhere, he said, "Nora, Owen really likes me." And I like him too. His eyes were deep, carrying an entire sky of emotion for me, a quiet, steady kind of love. After all those years studying abroad, he was still single, and for the past 6 months, he'd taken every chance to confess, hoping to rekindle something from the past. "My standard for choosing a partner isn't whether my kid likes them. It's whether I do," I said. He immediately asked, earnestly, "So do you like me?" I hesitated. My heart skipped a beat. Like him? There was a softness there, a fondness, because he was a beautiful part of my youth. But love? I wasn't so sure. 2 failed marriages had taught me that love wasn't everything. It could also be a chain. I stayed silent. Gabriel gave a tight smile, his eyes tinged with sadness. I get it, he said quietly. He got out of the car, walked a few steps, then turned back, his voice firm but full of regret. A gallery overseas invited me. I'm planning to leave for a while. Then he turned and walked away. After Gabriel left, Mr. Tom, the director at Initial Gallery, became my main point of contact. I signed up for a master class with a renowned painter. I didn't go looking for updates on Colin's life, but through Owen, some news still trickled in. Brianna, feeling secure in marriage, dropped her gentle act and revealed her true nature. She lounged on the couch with her phone, arguing with Colin. "You can't even afford a maid?" And he snapped back, "You don't lift a finger around here, and now you're complaining?" Colin had plenty of money, but back when I was around, I handled everything, so there was never a need to hire help. After constant bickering, he finally hired a nanny. With a nanny around, Brianna had more free time, going out to bars, partying late with friends. One night, Colin went looking for her and found her cuddling up to a stranger in some dark bar. That night, Owen called me crying, "Mom, Dad and Auntie are fighting. They're breaking things. I took my baby brother and hid in my room. I'm scared." His voice trembled through the phone. I raced to Colin's house, pounded on the door. Shouting rang from inside. "You filthy woman!" I kept knocking until it cut through the chaos. When the door opened, Colin and Brianna looked a mess, their faces twisted, the house wrecked. I took Owen outside. He was shaking, clinging to me, then turned to Colin. "If you have issues, deal with them. But don't fight in front of the children." He looked ashamed, stammering, "Nora!" I ignored him and walked away. Outside, Owen broke down crying. "Mom, I want to live with you." Over there, Brianna no longer pretended to care, and Colin's attention had shifted completely to the new baby. I held Owen's hand. His fingers were freezing and stroked his face. "I'll try to get you back," I said slowly. "But if we do this, there's no turning back. From now on, you'll carry my last name, Hayes. Are you okay with that?" Owen wiped his tears and nodded hard. "I agree." I filed for full custody. Colin exploded. "What the hell are you doing now?" I stayed calm. "I'm doing this for Owen." He roared. "You want custody? Not a chance." In court, I submitted proof of steady income from my paintings, property ownership, old photos of a well-cared-for Owen next to recent ones where he looked messy, along with testimony from neighbors. They fight constantly. It's no place for a child. Most important of all was Owen's own voice. When the judge asked, he answered clearly, "I want to live with my mom." In the end, I won. I brought my son home and cut all contact with Colin. Whatever happens to him now no longer concerns me. The only thing that matters is me and Owen, our new life, filled with paintings and his laughter. For safety, I transferred Owen to a new school. We moved to a new place. Colin, in all his rage and frantic calls, couldn't find us. He was lost in the very world he once controlled. And for the first time, I felt peace. From far away, Gabriel occasionally sent little surprises, small gifts from the cities he traveled through, a rare herbal salve to soothe my headaches after long nights of painting, or handwritten letters filled with warm check-ins and quiet memories. One day, during a gallery meeting, director Tom joked, "One short marriage, and Gabriel's heart got tied down for life." I just smiled, my gaze drifting to a painting on the wall, thinking maybe it's the regret that gives art its soul. The withered petals in Gabriel's work felt deeper, more alive, just like how my pain had shaped my brushstrokes, softly repeated in each canvas, quietly healing my spirit. Life now flows in ordinary, peaceful rhythms. Each morning I make coffee, sunlight pouring through the window, warming the space where Owen sits drawing beside me, his scribbles blending with my oils into a family picture no longer shackled by old lies. Each evening, I walk with him by the river, the breeze carrying the scent of fresh grass, his tiny hand gripping mine. And in those moments, I feel freedom spreading through me, healing wounds that once bled, reminding me that peace isn't the end, it's the beginning, where pain returns gently, only to remind us how strong we've become. And through these days, I've come to understand that true love is not a chain, it's a doorway to freedom. Let the pain become inspiration, so every brushstroke, every step, brings us closer to who we truly are. If this story made you feel something, please hit like, subscribe to the channel, and if you're also walking your own path of healing, leave a heart in the comments. We're truly listening to one another.